Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we are going to be talking about content planning. And really, this session is all about making social media feel more manageable because most people don't struggle with the care factor about their content, they struggle with keeping it going. So, this session is all about turning the ideas that you already have into a content plan that you can actually follow. We're not aiming for a perfect plan. We're not aiming for a complicated plan, but we're aiming for a real plan that you can actually stick by. And what I really want to hit home today is that a good content plan shouldn't give you more work, but it should give you less guesswork. So let's dive straight into what I see is the biggest problem for most people in this scenario where they don't know how to get into a good posting rhythm. So, my guess is that your posting still feels random, it's inconsistent, and it's hard to keep up. Now, I want to tell you that that is not a creativity problem, that is a system problem. So, this is a common experience. I really just want to sit here with you and tell you that you are not on your own if this is what you're feeling. Maybe you post just when you remember, or just when something urgent comes up, or just when inspiration strikes. And then a week or two goes by, and suddenly your social media just feels like another thing that you're behind on. And the social media guilt kicks in, which is very real. I've felt it, and I know the mental clutter that that can bring. So I want to say this really clearly, that this is not a creativity problem. You don't need to come up with more ideas or better ways of doing things that haven't been invented. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. What you need is a system that works. And I just want to throw this line in here. I have it written down, and it's a bit of a harsh truth, but random posting is what will bring random results. So if you want consistent social media results, you need to be consistently posting. Now, in this webinar, we are going to be building on a lot of ideas that we've spoken about in previous webinars, specifically the webinar 2 on social media strategy. So if you are watching this back on YouTube, go back and watch that one first, because there might be some things that go over your head. And if there are, it's probably because I've spoken about it in the last webinar. So I really encourage you to go and check that one out. It's all about knowing what to post, creating the ideas, generating that kind of thinking. And then this is more of the application and getting it onto social media. So go back and watch the other webinars if you haven't already. So next, we're going to talk about a simple framework. So this is a really simple framework that will help you to be the structure underneath your consistent content. So, ideas, formats, rhythm, and plan. So, first, you want to start with the ideas that you already have. Then, you decide what format suits those ideas. And then, you choose a realistic rhythm for you and your week. And then, you map that into a plan. So, simple systems just like this one are really powerful because they are repeatable. And if your workflow only is working when inspiration strikes, or you have lots of time, or an empty few days, or lots of energy, it's not really a workflow. The best content system and the best workflow is one that you can still use on your busiest week. So let's break this system down a little bit. So we're going to start with what you already have. One of the biggest misconceptions that I see about content planning is that you need to come up with fresh ideas all the time, and you don't. Most organizations already have more content ideas than they realize, and they're not just captured in one place. Some of them are in your saved folder in Instagram. Some of them you've stored in the back of your mind. Some of them your friend has, and you've talked about it and thought that would be a really good idea. But they're all separated, so they're really difficult to come back to when you sit down and try and plan for social media. So this is where a content bank comes in. A content bank is simply a list of ideas that you can draw from. It helps you for not starting from scratch every single time. And you it's like a menu, and you can sit down when you do your social media planning and choose from the menu. And this is where your content pillars still matter. We're not going to revisit them now in detail, but they do give your ideas some structure. So instead of thinking, what should I post this week? You can think, what do I already have that fits our work and our audience and our goals and our upcoming projects and events? You don't need more ideas. You just need a home for the ideas that you already have. So we're about to look at an example of what a content bank looks like. But I just want to reiterate that the planning is not about forcing your creativity, because forced creativity is never effective creativity, I find. It's about catching your creativity before it disappears and utilizing that well. So in your moments of pure creativity, having somewhere to jot your ideas down so that when you come back to it, it's there and it's ready for you, you're best utilizing that creativity. So let's move on to our content bank here. So this is what a content bank can look like in practice. It's not pretty, it's not super complicated, it just needs to be useful, really. So we've got a bunch of kind of sections in here, and these could reflect your content pillars. We've got a day in the life, we've got meet the team, we've got how to get involved, tips or resources, what your support makes possible, and something that really resonates with your audience. We've also got some timely ones that have more of a time crunch, a sale, a campaign launch, and then we've got a few light ones over here too. So splitting them into sections can help with your planning, and these come back to your content pillars as well. So splitting them into content pillars and then even maybe subcategories would be a really helpful way to organize this. And then once you've got this content bank of ideas, so each of these is what I'm going to refer to as ideas, you'll be able to match each of your ideas to a format. So you need to match your ideas to a format. Now, we've got some formats here. We've talked about this and what they're for, and I'm going to bring up a slide now that gives a quick summary of each of these formats. So again, I can send you these slides if you need. Please reach out to me. I am happy to send them to you. They're little cheat sheets and really valuable to have. So stories are for temporary and conversational and relational pieces. So that's good for the ideas that are timely in updates, because they're not going to be there in 24 hours. It doesn't hug to your social media presence. Whereas a carousel has multiple slides. They increase time spent on your content, and they're good for teaching and storytelling. So practically, this would be good for the educational impact and value pieces. So tips and resources, or what your support makes possible, before and after, that kind of thing. And then reels, they push your content to as many people as possible. And so they are good for the impact pieces, the meet the team pieces, the things that really you want your content to go far and wide. They're best for reels. But what I want to come back to is that you've got your idea. You need to think about what is the most effective way to share this. So, for example, a day in the life would work beautifully as a reel, because it's a tangible way for your audience to see what an actual day. It hits a lot of ticks behind the scenes. It's educational. You want it to go far and wide. That would be really good as a reel, but you couldn't really be as effective in communicating that in a carousel post in still images. So just figuring out the most effective way to tell your story that you're going to tell and share your idea is a really important piece of this puzzle. So don't pick the fanciest format or what you think you should be doing because someone's told you need to be posting 4 reels a week. You need to pick the format that is the most effective way to share your idea. And so if you're not sure where to start with our planning journey, I want you to pick 3 of our ideas from a content bank, 3 of your ideas, because I know that you already have some, and then assign each of them to a format and then schedule them across the week. You don't need a full campaign. You don't need a 30-day content challenge. You don't need to map out every single post for the next 6 months, because that is not realistic. You need a week that works, a weekly format, a weekly structure, a weekly rhythm that works for you. So maybe you choose a behind the scenes idea, an educational idea, and a community impact idea. And you give each of them a format. Maybe you're doing the behind the scenes as a reel. Maybe you're doing the educational as a carousel. And then maybe you're giving the community impact piece a story. So you've assigned each of them a format, and then that is planning. That's your week. So small plans like that get done, but overbuilt plans, they'd easily get abandoned, and they do, and I see it all the time. Momentum, when you're building your rhythm, is built in small, repeatable steps. So we need to start really, really simple. Plan a month of content. Keep it flexible, stay consistent, and you can use Canva templates to speed this up. Once you've tested a weekly rhythm that works for you, you can start thinking a little further ahead. And planning 1 month of content can be really, really useful for clearing your mental capacity that you have for social media and effectively work on everything else without feeling that all too familiar social media guilt that you should have posted on social media this week. Posting and planning for a monthly schedule can really, really be made easier by having a content bank to draw from. Now, when I say planning a month of social media, that doesn't mean you have to sit down for 8 hours one day and plan out the month and create every single piece of content, because that's probably unrealistic for you and your business. But what it does mean is sitting down once a month and planning out your month's social media. So maybe you're looking at a month calendar and you think, well, I want to have 2 education pieces. We have this event coming up and that needs to be slotted in there and there. And just planning your month, what it looks like on your calendar, and making sure that you've got an even spread. You're not tiring your audience with the same post over and over again. You've got a nice even spread of all of your content pillars, and you can also look ahead and plan and schedule for the things that you know would ordinarily, without a plan, just pop up, and then on the day you go, oh, we need to post this on social media. So one thing that can make this kind of bulk planning thing easier is Canva templates. So if you slowly but surely build a Canva template for every one of your ideas in your content bank, you've got a tips and educational template, you've got a meet the team template, you've got a behind the scenes template, you've got a listener testimony template. Once you've got those templates, it does make creating the content so much easier. So the templates save lots of time, but what the structure and the plan does is it saves a lot of energy. So that's really the point here, I suppose. We want a plan that supports consistency without creating the extra mental clutter. So again, start simple, stay flexible, and stay consistent. So next is keeping it realistic. And this is where a lot of people, I'm not going to say go wrong, but struggle, because we get really excited about what is possible and what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. And we get really excited and we do, okay, we're going to do 2 reels this week. And then you pre-make and pre-film a bunch of content. And then it all gets used up too quickly and you can't repeat the cycle quickly enough. So maybe you're posting 2 posts or carousels and a story in a week, or maybe it's a reel, a carousel, and a story, or maybe it's a story 3 days in a week and 1 carousel. Whatever it is, I really want you to ask the question, could I repeat this next week or next fortnight or next month? And if the answer is no, your plan is too complicated and you need to dial it back a little bit. So you don't need to post every day to be effective. That hasn't been a need in any audience for a long time. Your audience will see a post if you create it with intention and if you are not fatiguing them. So consistency matters far, 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 far more than intensity. So if you could only take one thing from this entire webinar series, it's above all things, try and be consistent. Consistency beats frequency and intensity, and your audience craves consistency more than you know and more than they know. So building a sustainable plan is important so that you can be consistent. So a plan that looks really impressive on paper, you're doing 4 posts a week and you've got it planned out for the next quarter. If it's not sustainable for you and your organization of the content production, it's not a good plan. So a simpler plan that you can actually repeat over and over again is far more valuable. Your audience does not need more content from you, but they do need higher quality and more consistency from you. So on a really practical note, I want you to think about what your week actually looks like. Do you have set meetings on Wednesdays and Fridays? Do you have when do you have free time in your week to do content creation, and when do you have free time in your month or a fortnight or whatever flow is going to work for you to do your content planning? I find a structure that has worked really well for me is on a Monday or Tuesday morning when I'm feeling really fresh. I often do a Tuesday morning. The Monday scaries of things that have come in over the weekend have dissipated a bit. Tuesday morning, I'm feeling fresh. I can sit down, and the first Tuesday of the month, I do the planning for the next month. And then every Tuesday morning of every single week, I do the content creation for that week, or even the next week if you're planning a week in advance. So just finding a rhythm that's really practical, that's actually going to work for you is really important, and actually put it in your calendar as a meeting, because I find at least that when something is genuinely, tangibly in my calendar, I'm so much more likely to stick to it and actually do it rather than just push it to the back of the to-do list. So pop something in your calendar that will remind you to do it. Social media is a beast. It's not going to go away, and it needs to be fed, and it's going to get angrier and bigger if you don't feed it consistently. So find a feeding plan. I know that's a funny analogy, but it's always going to be there. And if you don't find a consistent way to do it well, it's not going to work out very well for you. So we've got the content and we've got a rhythm kind of worked out, and we have our ideas. So how do we actually get it into a calendar and then onto social media? Well, there's a few ways of doing this, and it's completely up to you based on personal preference. Maybe you are going to be creating and planning in one sitting, in which case that's great. You can probably schedule it all into Meta. Or maybe you are kind of doing the actual content creation less frequently, and so you need a physical calendar to look at and plan out. So the best calendar, whatever it is one that you're actually going to open. So maybe it's something completely different. Maybe you're doing this in your Outlook calendar, but I'm going to open 3 recommendations that I have used personally, and I know others have used. I've got a template to give you for free that our team has developed. Jody from our team has developed this, and it's free to use if you'd like. Please reach out to me if you have any issues accessing it. It'll be in the link here. So use something that you will actually use is the most important be all and end all, but something, and putting things to paper and putting things to a calendar will actually be the thing that frees up your mental clutter. So I'm going to dive into these actual platforms now. We're going to start with Excel. and then we're going to go to Meta, and then we'll finish with Canva. So we've landed in Excel. Now, if this specific Excel document, I'm going to talk you through this one, but if this one doesn't sound like it fits for what you're looking for, if you do a simple Google search, there are hundreds of free Excel content planning calendars out there. So there, I'm sure, will be something out there that will suit your needs better if this one doesn't seem like it fits right. But this one is really great. There's a few different aspects to it that we're going to break down. Let's start with the fact that we can put our content pillars in this separate sheet. So it's set up for your content pillars as well. You can edit these to fit your specific content pillars, and maybe this would be a good place for your content bank to live as well. You can put all of your content ideas under their specific content pillar. So then we move back over to the sheet number 2, which is the content plan. Now this outlines every single day of the year, and that way you can really easily see what you have planned. So you can see here that this is broken down between the different platforms. So we've got Facebook and Instagram, an e-newsletter, or LinkedIn. Now these are totally customizable. You can edit this template, you can color code it however you see fit based on your needs and your personal organization's platforms. So you can do a post description, a caption, you can add links here. But again, this is totally customizable. You maybe don't need to have a section for team comments. You may not need the yes or no scheduled column. So it's all just about what works for you, but this is totally customizable. But I do encourage you to use something where laid out you can see what you have scheduled for a month. So if I was to highlight this entire month and I had maybe, let's say, 9 things posted or 9 things scheduled over the entire month, I would feel pretty good about that. I'd think, okay, that's 2 to 3 posts a week. That's about right. But if I was only then posting twice a week and I felt like maybe I would wanted to be posting more, that's a really clear way to see it here. Now, obviously, it's not the way that a traditional calendar looks laid out month by month, but it's also a great way to keep track of what you have posted in the past. So if you'd like a link to this, again, it's totally customizable. It's a template, so you can edit it however you like. Please let me know. It will be linked in this webinar description. So yeah, please take full advantage of that. We're going to move over to Meta now. So Meta is Instagram and Facebook, and the Meta Business Suite is a place where everything lives in regards to your business's Instagram and Facebook. So if you haven't already got that set up and you need some assistance, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you get that started. And the planner can be a bit tricky to find if you don't know where to look, but it's just under this All Tools button here. And then you can come over to this row and see Planner just down the bottom here. So click on the Planner. Initially, it will come up as a week view, so you can see what you have planned for your week, but you can also see it as your month view. So I'm now seeing the plan for April. Now, I don't have anything scheduled because Friday is my scheduling day, so I will be scheduling next week's for tomorrow. So but you will be able to see everything that's scheduled here, and then you can post and schedule directly from here as well. So let's say that I want to schedule a post for Monday morning. I will click schedule post, but from here you can also schedule a story and create a reel. So if I was to schedule a post, you can choose the date and time, and then add your media, put in the collaborators and caption and everything that you need to do there. But just going back here now, the limitation here with doing it directly through Meta is that you can't plan but not schedule. So if you are sitting down at the start of the fortnight or the month and doing all of your planning and content creation in one sitting, then this would be perfect, because once you've planned it and you've created your content, you can schedule away. However, you don't have the capacity to just plan what you're going to schedule in this platform. Now that takes us to Canva, because in Canva you can do that. So it looks very similar. And if you are home in Canva, again, it's just in this More tab over on the left-hand side and then under Content Planner. Now this is great. You can connect all of your social platforms and, just like Meta, publish straight from Canva into your social media platform, but you can also plan. And it works very, very similar to the Meta Content Planner, except you can actually plan something and not have it scheduled or published. So this is a really great one. You can color code them. It gives some suggested posts. And for example, if you click on this suggested post, it brings up some templates for you to look at and use and really easily schedule something. But you can also pull straight from your previous designs. If you go in here, you can plan, you can add from your most recent Canva designs, scroll through and add those, select your social media channel, write your caption, all of that kind of thing. So there's pros and cons to every platform that you're going to use, but it would just be important for you to weigh up what you will use, what you won't use, because the most effective calendar, again, is the one that you will actually open. Maybe what's actually going to be realistic and effective for you is scheduling things in your Outlook calendar. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's something that you're actually going to stick to. So now we've got all of those tools under our belts, and we can have a think about how we'd like to actually plan and get our content into social media. One of my final remarks is to stay flexible. And this is really important because sometimes people hear, make a plan, and they think that you have to follow it rigidly, and you don't. You definitely don't. So staying flexible means that there is a plan to support you, but not to control you. So if something changes, something comes up, there's a last minute event, there's a timely opportunity, there's someone you want to honor, there's a last minute thing that you need to publish, great. Respond to it. Don't stress out about the fact that you already have a post scheduled for today and tomorrow and you don't know how you're going to fit it in. You can swap the post. You don't have to scrap the plan. So, and also you don't even have to necessarily swap the post. No one said that you can't publish 2 posts in one day on the same platform. It probably isn't the smartest idea to post 2 reels at the exact same time. They're probably not going to perform as well as they would if you posted them on 2 separate days. But if you've got a story scheduled for the morning and then a completely different reel or carousel and you schedule it for the afternoon, that's great. That's not the end of the world. From what I've seen in social media algorithms, they're not going to contradict each other or not perform as well as one another. So you can swap out your content and reschedule it for another time, or you can just go with the flow and post 2 things in one day, or it just doesn't have to be as serious as we make it. And I know that social media is a big, scary thing with lots of unspoken rules and algorithms that make no sense to us most of the time. One mindset shift that makes a huge difference is that because the moment that one post changes, a lot of people feel like the whole plan has failed, and it hasn't. You need to get out of that mindset. The fact that you can shift and be flexible with your plan is actually a wonderful thing. It's a sign of a good plan. So switch that mindset that you haven't failed if the plan hasn't worked out that week or it didn't run as smoothly as you thought it would. Take it as a win because you've got your content bank. Maybe that means you even got content for 1 extra week because you can push everything back a little bit. A good plan can bend without breaking, which is a good kind of mindset to have, is that You don't have to be super rigid. The plan should be able to bend without breaking. Flexibility, especially in this context, is not the opposite of planning and organization. Flexibility is a good part of planning. If you know that you usually have someone who comes in and to your organization and has this content idea on a Wednesday, you can leave the Wednesday open. Planning for flexibility is a really good part of this. So the goal is not to create a perfect calendar. The goal is to create your content rhythm that helps you to keep showing up amidst the flexibility and the unknowns and the changes. So let's bring it all together. Start with the ideas you have, and remember, you probably have more ideas than you know about. Spend some time getting them all down onto one page so that you can choose from a menu and you're not starting from scratch every time you go to content plan. Make sure they align with your content pillars, and match your ideas then to your formats, create a rhythm, and put it into a calendar. And at the end of all that, make sure it is sustainable. So remember that when content planning gets easier, consistency gets easier. And when consistency gets bigger, impact gets bigger. And that's really what you want. You want a lasting impact on your followers, your community. You want resonance, and you want to foster an environment where your community and your audience feels like they're part of something bigger. So please let me know if you have any further questions, if you'd like links to anything or copies of any slides. I'd love to help you with that. So reach out, let me know how I can help. We're going to go into our Q&A portion of the webinar now. So I'm going to end this recording and we'll get started. Thanks so much for joining if you are finishing the webinar now or if you're watching back on YouTube.